I have to come clean because if you've been subscribed to my channel for some time, or if maybe this is your first time, then this is most likely going to be the first time that you hear this. If I wasn't running the businesses that I do now, and if I wasn't doing YouTube the way that I am now, at the level that I'm doing it, I honestly think that my dream career, hence kind of ties in with what I do now, would be to become a teacher, right? I'm passionate about education. I enjoy learning. For crying out loud, I say 90 to 95% of my content across all my platforms is based off of education. It's how I've been able to sustain my way of living. And I just absolutely love seeing the light bulbs going off in the room. Not this one, but in your room if you're watching this, which is why this topic right here is so important to me, because there's a time and a place for education and reform and maybe some changes that need to be made. And I think that that time is coming one way or another, because I personally think that the education system is absolutely dated. Now, I don't want to bash and I don't want to put down the education system, because I think that, for one, teachers are underpaid. But secondly, I think that maybe this could be a starting point, or maybe a moment of dialogue, or even kind of a moment of consideration if maybe you're watching this, or maybe someone you know that's in the education system. And hopefully videos like this continue to resurface, because I know that I'm not the first one to make a video like this, but I did want to put my spin on this specific topic. I have 5 different areas, or 5 different really things that were kind of left out, at least in the type of education system that I grew up in. And I just wanted to make this video and run this by you as well, because I think that this is going to help people, whether you are in the entrepreneurial space, or if you are maybe looking to move up in your career, or if you're kind of undecisive of where you're headed. And that's this. The first area that I think was left out in the education space was critical thinking. Now, I know that the way that the tests are formatted, they're formatted in a way that obviously has us research, has us think, okay, what's the right answer? What's the wrong answer? But in my opinion, I think that that should only be taught up to a level, because it ends up kind of hurting us in the real world. Here's what I mean. Kind of like what we have now, right? Where you have one person on the side of, let's say, the board, or you have one person behind the other screen. And you see this a lot on social media, where they're commenting, they're going back and forth with each other. They're kind of just chirping who's right, who's wrong, but there's really no critical thinking, and there's no logic that's actually being implemented. A lot of the information that we have is really just hearsay, right? But where critical thinking comes into play is we end up challenging even what we think is right. And so rather than saying 1 + 1 is 2, everyone knows that, well, 2 + 0 is also 2. 3 - 1 is also 2. 4 divided by 2 is also 2. It all comes down to the same answer, which is 2. So I use that example, obviously not to challenge math or challenge the way that we've been taught math, but to challenge maybe, just maybe, there is more than one way of doing something. And I think that critical thinking allows us to arrive to a destination where it's not just about this or that. I think that we can coexist in a world of this and that, especially when you, again, are in the corporate world, or you're in the entrepreneurial business space. Number 2, finances. And I try to say this with a straight face, because I personally have learned more about finances. You can't see it, but behind this camera, I have my entire bookshelf in my studio setup right here. I've learned more from maybe 1, 2, 3, maybe 3 books. And I mean, I have a lot of financial books here, maybe 3 books in just the first 5 chapters of those books, and even off of a few videos on YouTube, than I did in my entire really career as a student, right? My entire lifetime as a student. And by the way, I have a bachelor's in business administration with a minor in healthcare management. So it's not like I dropped out of college. I have a 4-year degree. I went to college. I graduated. I have my bachelor's degree. I even worked in the field that I was working at before I decided to venture out and run my own businesses. But I think that we should have been taught a little bit more about budgeting. We should have been taught a little bit more about taxes. and how they work, and some possible vehicles that we can use to avoid paying taxes legally, and some possible ways that maybe we can use certain write-offs within our businesses or even within our workplace, and how vehicle mileage works. How does an LLC work? Can I use an LLC to purchase my vehicle so that I can maybe use the lease to then write that off, lower my tax bill, bring me into the next tax bracket, where again, I'm saving money that I can then use that to reinvest, put it out into the economy, put it out to help local business owners, put it out to maybe hire some better help, open up more jobs. You see, it's not just about how much money you can save. It's not just about how much money we invest from these tools that we learn or the account types that we have access to. You see, this is more than just what happens here. This impacts an entire community, which leads me into my third point here. And it's, we were only really taught about one type of income. And I know that this is going to resonate with a lot of people, because I'm going to say that right around 85 to 90% of anyone watching this right now, you most likely have one, maybe at the absolute most, two types of incomes. Now, the incomes that we were taught about in school were primarily active income, but we weren't taught about different types of income, kind of like passive income, interest income, dividends, revenue share, residual, capital gains. You see, these are all different types of incomes with different purposes that kind of derive from different types of vehicles, different types of businesses, and different structures that we've never really been exposed to, at least not in the school world. So what ends up happening is that when we get to the real world, we start to wonder, why is it that I always have more bills left at the end of the month than I do money? And it's not necessarily that we're doing something wrong, because obviously you can make a living off of certain careers out there. You can make a living off of, let's say, if you're an engineer or if you're a doctor. But let's be honest here, even then, the way that inflation's been going and the way that everything's been getting more expensive, what we used to think was a lot of money, I'd say the same time 5 years ago, I wouldn't necessarily say is a lot of money now, especially with where home values are and just what everything is costing. So in my opinion, having more than one source of income is absolutely pivotal. I don't think it's no longer a luxury. I think that it's an absolute need to have at least three sources of income and have that diversified throughout not necessarily different industries. You can always have it within the same industry, but have it in a way that it's possibly breaks off into different realms. Now, number 4 is a unique one, and this is one that I actually wish that I would have picked up earlier in my career, back when I was in my 20s, and that's going to be networking. I think that one of the most powerful things that anyone can do, whether you are in the business world or if you, again, are climbing the corporate ladder, is to network. Now, obviously, you kind of get that through fraternities and sororities, where they kind of, have their own network. So you scratch my back, I scratch your back. You're my college bud, you're my college sis. And so when we go out into the corporate world, I can kind of back you up and I can be your reference. I think that if there was a course set up or a class set up, maybe some type of situation or an environment where you show the students, let's say, this is how you network, this is how you have business etiquette, this is how you pass out a card, this is how you dress, this is how, maybe if you wanted to go business casual, this is what business professional looks, this is what it looks like to greet someone during a breakfast or during a luncheon, and this is what it feels like to continue to have a conversation and ask good questions, because part of having a strong network and part of good networking isn't just about how many business cards I can pass out. You see, it has to do more with how I'm able to connect to the person that I'm having a dialogue with. So practicing, okay, how long can you keep the conversation going without you making necessarily a statement about yourself, but asking good, open-ended questions, which is what a good conversation really is and what naturally flows out of a conversation. This is why when you're on a first date, or this is why when you are, you're hanging out with someone that you want to get to know on a deeper level, you want to know everything you can about them, because you want to see if you're going to be in this for the long run, if this is going to be a one-night thing, or if you are heading out of there, if I can just be candid with you. But that's really what it is, even in the business or in the corporate world. And then the fifth and final thing that I wish they would have taught in schools, and this one is also near and dear to my heart. Everything on this list, Again, I am 100% an advocate of, because I've seen what it's done in my personal life and in my businesses. But this last one right here, I think that without this one, there is nothing else that we can kind of take care of or really take from this video. And that's this, your EQ, emotional intelligence. If I could maybe put one at the top of the list, it would be this, but I left it for last just because I think it's kind of like the cohesive and the glue to everything that we've talked about. It's not always about the numbers. It's not always about how we see things. It's not always about how much money we can make. It's not always about what's next in my corporate life, or how well can I do with my business this upcoming month, or how many stocks can I hold this month and let this thing run up, or how much crypto can I buy, let this thing run up before I decide to sell off all of my shares, or how many employees can I have under me. No. I think a lot of this also has to do with how are you doing? What's your well-being life? How are you managing stress? How are you managing breakups? How are you managing that moment when you had to fire someone? How have you been able to manage when you've been let go? 99.9% of success, in my opinion, from just everyone that I've been able to network with, from people that earn, let's say, $100,000 a year, to those that earn $100,000 a month, to those that earn $100,000 a week, has really come down to one thing that I can point back to, and that's they have a control over their emotional state. This isn't to say that they don't get pissed. This isn't to say that they don't get sad. This isn't to say that they don't go into their swings of depression, but they do recognize that. They have self-awareness, and they immediately pop out of it. And so what can we do in the education system right now where we have those conversations, where I get it? Can we teach this in our homes? But can we also learn this and have kids at a young age learn to develop their skills of what it's like to vocalize, what it's like to maybe illustrate, maybe even if it's putting it down on paper, what their feelings are like, so that they know so that they're self-aware of their surroundings. Because the more self-aware you are about yourself, the more aware you are about everything else that goes around you. So there you have it. Those are my 5 lessons, 5 topics, 5 subjects that I wish they would have taught us in school. Let me know if I left one out that you think that it absolutely needs to be integrated, or at least mentioned at one point or another in our education system. If you found value in this content, consider hitting the subscribe button down below. Join the official community. Don't forget that anytime I'm not posting on here, I'm posting over on the Inside with Irv show. So if you like what I have going on over here, you'll love what I have going on over there. Once again, I appreciate you checking us out. Until next time, everyone, I will see you in the next video.